Meanwhile, the goddess of the dawn had risen from ocean, and anxious and eager as Aeneas was to give time to burying his comrades, distraught as he was in mind at their deaths, at first light the victor was paying his vows to the gods. Cutting all the branches off a huge oak, he set it up on a mound as a trophy to the great god, mighty in war, and clothed it in the shining armour he had stripped from the body of the enemy leader Mezentius. There he set the hero's crest, dripping its dew of blood. The broken spears and the breastplate struck and pierced through in 12 places. On the left he bound the bronze shield, and from the neck he hung the ivoried sword. He then addressed his comrades, for all the Trojan leaders were pressing close around him. And these were the words he spoke to urge them on in their hour of triumph. The greatest part of our work is done, my friends. In what remains there is nothing to fear. These are spoils I have taken from a proud king, the first fruits of this war. This is Mezentius, and my hands have set him in this place. Our way now lies towards the king of the Latins and the walls of their city. Make ready your weapons. Fill your minds and your hopes with the thought of war, so that no man shall hesitate or not know what to do when the gods permit us to pull up our standards and lead the army out of camp. When that time comes, there must be no faint-heartedness or sluggishness in our thoughts to slow us down. In the meanwhile, let us consign the unburied bodies of our comrades to the earth, for that is the only honour a man has in the underworld. Go, he said, and grace these noble spirits with their last rites, for they have shed their blood to win this land for us. But first, let Pallas be sent back to the stricken city of Evander. This was a warrior who did not fail in courage when his black day took him from us and drowned him in the bitterness of death. So he spoke, weeping, and made his way back to his own threshold, where the body of Pallas lay guarded by old Acoetes. Acoetes had once been the armour-bearer for Arcadian Evander, but the auspices were no longer so favourable when he was appointed as companion to his dear ward, Pallas. About them stood the whole throng of their attendants, and all the Trojans and the women of Troy, with their hair unbound in mourning after the manner of their people. But when Aeneas entered his high doorway, they beat their breasts and raised their wild lament to the sky till the palace rang with the sound of their grief. When he himself saw the head of Pallas cushioned there, and his white face, and the open wound torn in that smooth breast by the Italian spear, the tears welled up, and he spoke these words. Oh, the pity of it! Fortune came to me with smiles, but took you from me while you were still a boy, and would not let you live to see us in our kingdom, or to ride back in triumph to your father's house. This is not what I promised Evander for his son, when he took me in his arms as I left him, and sent me out to take up this great command, warning me with fear in his heart that these were fierce warriors, and that this was a hardy race I had to meet in battle. Even now, deluded by vain hopes, he may be making vows and heaping altars with offerings, while we bring him, with tears and useless honours, a young warrior who owes no more debts to any heavenly power. With what eyes will you look at the dead body of your son? Is this how we return from war? Are these the triumphs expected of us? Is this my great pledge? But you will not see a wound on him, Evander, of which you need to be ashamed. you will not be a father who has the terrible wish that his son who is alive were dead. The land of Italy has lost a great bulwark, and great too is your loss, Iulus." After he had his fill of weeping, he ordered them to take up the pitiable corpse, and from the whole army he sent 1,000 chosen men as escort to pay a last tribute and join their tears with those of Evander, a small comfort for a great sorrow, but a debt that was owed to the stricken father. Others were not slow to weave a soft wicker-work bier of arbutus and oak shoots to make a raised couch, shaded by a canopy of green, where they laid the young warrior high on his bed of country straw. He lay like a flower cut by the thumbnail of a young girl, a soft violet or drooping lily, still with its sheen and its shape, though Mother Earth no longer feeds it and gives it strength. Then Aeneas, who brought out 2 robes stiffened with gold, and purple threads, which Sidonian Dido had long since made for him by her own hands, picking out the warp in fine gold, and the work had been a joy to her. With grief in his heart, he put one of these on the young man's body as his last tribute, and in a fold of it he veiled the hair that would soon be burned. Then he gathered a great heap of spoil from the battles on the Laurentine fields, and ordered it to be brought to the pyre in a long procession, adding to it the horses and weapons he had taken from the enemy. Then came the captives, whose hands he had bound behind their backs, to send them as offerings to the shades of the dead, and sprinkle the funeral pyre with the blood of their sacrifice. He also commanded the leaders of the army to carry in their own arms tree trunks draped with weapons captured from the enemy and inscribed with their hated names. Acoetes, worn out with age, was led along in the procession, beating his breast with clenched fists and tearing his face with his nails. But he collapsed and lay all his length on the ground. Chariots were drawn along drenched with Rutulian blood. And then came Pallas's warhorse, Aeneid, stripped of all its trappings, with the tears rolling down in great drops and soaking its face. There were men to carry his spear and his helmet. The victorious Turnus had the rest. A great phalanx of mourners followed, all the Trojans and the Etruscans and the Arcadians with their arms reversed. After this procession of all the comrades of Pallas had marched well clear of the camp, Aeneas halted, and with a deep groan he spoke these words: "The same grim destiny of war calls us away from here to weep other tears. Forever hail, great Pallas, and farewell forever." He said no more, but set off toward his high-built fortifications and marched back into camp. And now envoys appeared from the city of the Latins, bearing olive branches wreathed in wool and asking for a truce. The bodies of their dead were all over the plain where the steel had laid them, and they begged Aeneas to give them back and let them go to their graves in the earth. For he could have no quarrel with men who were defeated and had lost the light of life. He must show mercy to those who had once been called his hosts and the kinsmen of his bride. Good Aeneas could not refuse this petition. He honoured the envoys, granted what they asked, and added these words: "What cruel fortune is this, men of Latium, that has embroiled you in war and made you run away from us, who are your friends? You ask me for peace for the dead, whose destiny has been to die in battle. I, for my part, would have been willing to grant them peace when they were still alive. Nor would I ever have come to this land if the fates had not offered me a place here to be my home. I do not wage war with your people. It was your king who abandoned our sworn friendship and preferred to put his trust in the weapons of Turnus. Actually, no, he didn't. It is not these men who should have risked their lives, but Turnus. If it is his plan to put an end to this war by the strength of his arm and drive out the Trojans, he should have faced me and these weapons of mine in battle. One of us would have lived. God or our own right hands would have seen to that. Now go and light fires beneath the bodies of your unfortunate citizens." Aeneas had spoken. They were astonished and stood looking at each other in silence. Then Drances, an older man who had always hated the young warrior Turnus and spoken against him, began to make his reply. "O Trojan, great in fame, and greater still in arms, what words of mine could raise you to the skies? What shall I first praise, your justice, or your labours in war? Gratefully shall we carry these words of yours back to our native city, and if fortune shows us a way, we shall reconcile you to our king Latinus. Turnus can make his own treaties. We shall do more. We shall delight to raise the massive walls fate has decreed for you, and lift up the building stones of Troy on our shoulders." All to a man they murmured in agreement when he had finished speaking. 12 days they decided on, and during that time, with peace as mediator between them, Trojans and Latins were together in the hills and wandered the woods, and no man harmed another. The iron axe rang upon tall ash trees and brought down skyward thrusting pines. They never rested from their labours, splitting the oak and fragrant cedar with wedges and carrying down the ash trees on carts from the mountains. But rumour was already on the wing, overwhelming Evander and the house and city of Evander with the first warnings of anguish. The talk was no longer of Pallas, conqueror of Latium. The Arcadians rushed to the gates, snatching up funeral torches according to their ancient practice. The road was lit by a long line of flames which showed up the fields far on either side. Nearer and nearer came the throng of Trojans till it joined the columns of mourners. When the mothers of Pallanteum saw them entering the walls, the stricken city was ablaze with their cries. No power on earth could restrain Evander. Coming into the middle of the throng, where the bier had been laid on the ground, he threw himself on the body of Pallas and clung to it, weeping and moaning, until at last grief freed a path for his voice. "Pallas, this is not what you promised your father. You said you would not be too rash in trusting yourself to the cruel god of war. I knew well the glory of one's first success in arms, the joy above all other joys of one's first battle. These are bitter first fruits for a young man. A hard schooling it has been in war, and you did not have to go far for it. None of the gods listened to my vows and prayers. My dear wife, most blessed of women, you were fortunate in your death in not living to see this day. But I have outstayed my time. A father should not survive his son. If only I had followed our Trojan allies into battle, and the Rutilians had buried me under with their spears. If only I had given up my own life, and this procession was bringing home my body, not the body of Pallas. I would not wish to blame you, Trojans, nor our treaties, nor regret the joining of our right hands in friendship. The death of my son was a debt I was fated to pay in my old age. But if an early death was his destiny, I shall rejoice to think that first he killed thousands of Volscians, and fell while leading the Trojans into Latium. Nor would I wish you any other funeral than this, Pallas, given you by good Aeneas and the great men from Phrygia, the leaders of Etruscans and all the soldiers of Etruria, bearing the great trophies of the warriors your right hand has sent to their deaths. And you too, Turnus, would now be standing in the fields, a huge, headless trophy. Had Pallas been your equal in age, had the years given you both equal strength. But why does my grief keep the Trojans from their arms? Go now. Take this charge to your king and do not forget it. If I drag out my hated life now that Pallas is killed, the reason, Aeneas, lies in your right arm. You know it owes the life of Turnus to the son and to the father. This is the one field where you must put your courage and your fortune to the test. I seek no joy in life. That is not what the gods have willed. Only to take this satisfaction down to my son among the dead. Aurora, meanwhile, had lifted up her life-giving light for miserable mortals, bringing back their toil and sufferings. Both Tarchon and Father Aeneas soon built funeral pyres on the curving shore and carried there the bodies of their dead, each after the fashion of their fathers. They then set black burning torches to the fires, and the heights of heaven were plunged into pitchy darkness. 3 times they ran round the blazing pyres in gleaming armour. 3 times they rode in solemn procession round the fires of the dead with wails of lamentation. Tears fell upon their armour and fell upon the earth beneath. The clamour of men and the clangour of trumpets rose to heaven as some threw into the flames spoils torn from the corpses of Latins, their splendid swords and helmets, the bridles of horses and scorching chariot wheels, while others burned the familiar possessions of their dead friends, the shields and spears which fortune had not blessed. All around, oxen were being sacrificed and their bodies offered to the god of death, while bristling swine and flocks carried off from the fields were slaughtered over fires. All along the shore they watched the bodies of their comrades burn and tended the dying flames. Nor would they be torn away till the dank night turned over in the heavens and showed a sky studded with burning stars. The mourning Latins, too, had built countless pyres, some distance apart from the Trojans. Many bodies of men they buried in the earth. Many they took up and carried back to the city or to their homes nearby in the countryside. The rest they burned uncounted and unhonoured, a huge pile of jumbled corpses, and all the wide land on either side was lit by fire upon fire, each brighter than the other. When the 3rd day had risen and dispersed the chill darkness of the sky, the mourners levelled on the pyres the deep ash in which the bones of the dead were mingled, and weighed it down with mounds of warm earth. That day, in their homes in the city of King Latinus, famous for his wealth, the noise of grief was at its loudest. That day, their long mourning reached its height. Here were the mothers and heartbroken wives of the dead. Here were loving sisters beating their breasts, and children who had lost their fathers, all cursing this deadly war and Turnus's marriage. He was the man who should be deciding this matter with his own sword and shield, since he was the man who was claiming the kingdom of Italy and the highest honours for himself. The bitter Drances heaped fuel on the fire and swore that Turnus was the only man whose name was being called. Nobody else was being asked to fight. But at the same time, many voices were raised for Turnus, and much was said on his behalf. The great name of the Queen cast its protecting shadow, and also in his favour was all the fame and all the trophies he had won in his wars. In the middle of this disturbance, while the dispute was still raging, to crown all, the envoys suddenly arrived back with a gloomy answer from the city of Diomede. They had achieved nothing for all the efforts they had expended. Their gifts, their gold, their earnest prayers had failed. The Latins would have to look elsewhere for reinforcements, or plead for peace with the Trojan king. At this bitter blow, even King Latinus lost heart. Aeneas was chosen by fate, and brought here by the express will of heaven. This was what the anger of the gods was telling them. This was the message of these tombs newly raised before their eyes. With such thoughts in mind, he summoned a great council, commanding the leaders of his people to come within his lofty doors. They duly gathered, filling the streets as they streamed to the royal palace. Greatest in age and first of those who carried the sceptre, Latinus sat in the middle with sadness on his brow, and asked the envoys who had returned from the city of the Aetolians to tell what reply they had brought, demanding to hear every detail in due order. The assembly was called to silence. Venulus obeyed the command and began to speak. Fellow citizens, we have seen Diomede and the Argive camp. We have paced out the road and lived through all the chances of the journey. We have touched the hand that brought down the land of Ilium. There in the fields, near Mount Garganus, in the Apulian kingdom of Iapyx, the victorious Diomede was founding his city, called Argyripa, after the home of his fathers at Argos. After we were admitted to his presence and given leave to speak, we offered our gifts, telling him our names and the land from which we came, who had brought war among us, and what had taken us to Arpi. He heard us out and made this reply in words of peace. The peoples of your land are blessed by fortune. Yours are the kingdoms of Saturn, the ancient Ausonians. But what fortune is it that disturbs your peace and persuades you to stir up wars you do not understand? Those of us whose swords violated the fields of Ilium, let me not speak of all we endured as we fought beneath her walls, or of our men drowned in her river Simois. We are scattered over the round earth, paying unspeakable penalties and suffering all manner of punishment for our crimes. We are a band of men that even Priam might pity. The deadly star of Minerva knows us well. So do the rocks of Euboea and Caphareus, the Cape of Vengeance. From that campaign we have been washed up on many a different shore. Menelaus, son of Atreus, is in exile in distant Egypt at the pillars of Proteus. Ulysses has seen the Cyclops on Etna. Shall I speak of the kingdom of Neoptolemus in Epirus, of the new home of Idomeneus in Calabria, of Locrians living on the shores of Libya? Even the leader of great Archivi from Mycenae was struck down by the hand of his evil queen the moment he stepped over his own threshold. The adulterous lover had been waiting for Asia to fall. To think that the envious gods forbade me to return to the altars of my fathers, or to see my wife I longed for, and my beautiful homeland of Calydon. Even now I am pursued by the sight of hideous portents. My lost comrades have taken to the sky on wings. They have become birds and haunt the rivers. So cruelly have my people been punished, weeping till the rocks ring with the sound of their voices. From that moment of madness when I attacked the body of a goddess and my spear defiled the hand of Venus, I should have known that this was bound to come. Do not, I beg you, do not urge me to take part in any such battle. I have had no quarrel with the Trojans since the uprooting of their citadel of Pergamum, and I do not remember old wrongs or take any pleasure in them. As for the gifts you bring me from your country, give them rather to Aeneas. We have faced each other, spear against deadly spear, and closed in battle. Believe me, for I have known it, how huge he rises behind his shield. With what a whir he spins his javelin. If the land of Ilium had borne 2 other such heroes, the Trojan would have come in war to the cities of the Greek. The fates would have changed, and Greece would now be in mourning. As for all the long delay before the stubborn walls of Troy, it was the hands of Hector and Aeneas, both men noble in their courage, noble in their skill in arms, but Aeneas the greater in piety, that held back the victory of the Greeks, and did not let it come till the 10th year. Let your hands join in treaty of peace while the chance is offered, but take care not to let your weapons clash on his. You have heard, O best of kings, the answer of a king. You have heard his judgment on this great war. The envoys had scarcely finished before a confused roar was running through the troubled ranks of the Italians, as when rocks resist a river in spate, and the trapped waters eddy and growl, while the banks on either side roar with the din of waves. As soon as calm returned to their minds, and the words of fear were stilled on their lips, the king on his high throne addressed the gods and then began. For my part, O men of Latium, I would have wished, and it would have been better so, to have decided this great issue long since, and not be summoning a council at a time like this, with the enemy sitting by our walls. We are fighting a misguided war, fellow citizens, against unconquerable heroes and the sons of gods. Battle does not weary them, and even in defeat they cannot take their hands from the sword. If you have any hope of recruiting the Aetolians as your allies, lay it aside. To everyone his own hopes, but you can see how feeble this one is. All other resource is shattered and lies in ruins. You can see this with your own eyes. The whole truth is there at your fingertips. I accuse no one. Courage has done all that courage could do. The whole body of the kingdom has fought this fight, but now the time has come for me to express an opinion which has formed in my doubting mind. Give me your attention, and I shall tell it in a few words. Near the Tuscan river Tiber, I have long owned some land, which stretches away to the west, beyond the land of the Sicani. Here, Auruncans and Rutulians sow their seeds, wearying the stony hills with the plough and grazing the roughest of them. Let this whole area, with the pine forests clothing its high mountains, be given to the Trojans as a token of our friendship, and let us propose a treaty in just terms, inviting them to become partners in our kingdom. Let them settle here, if their hearts are so set on it, and build their walls. But if it is their wish to go elsewhere, and seize the land of some other nation, and if it is within their power to leave this country of ours, let us weave the timbers of 20 ships in Italian oak, or more if they can man them. The wood is all lying on the shore. Let them say what ships they want and how many, and we can provide the bronze, the dockyards, and the hands to do the work. I propose also that 100 envoys, men of the highest rank in the Latin race, be sent to carry this message and conclude this treaty, holding out the branches of peace in their hands and bearing gifts, talents of gold and ivory, and the throne and robe which are the emblems of our royal power. Consider this together, and rescue our crippled fortunes. Then rose Drances, hostile as ever, who always looked askance at Turnus's great reputation and was goaded by bitter jealousy. He was generous with his wealth and readier still with his tongue, but his hand did not warm to battle. His voice had some weight in council and was always a force for discord. His mother's breeding gave him pride of rank. His father's origins were unknown. These were the words he spoke to add force and substance to their anger. What you propose, good King Latinus, is clear to all and needs no words of mine to support it. Everyone knows and admits that he knows what fortune has in store for the people, but they are all afraid to utter it. It is time for the man who auspices the gods reject to blow a little less hard and give us freedom to speak. It is because of his fatal recklessness. I, for one, shall not be silent, though he draw his sword and threaten me with death. We have seen so many of our leaders, who have been the lights of our people, extinguished, and the whole of our city now slumped in grief, while he storms the Trojan camp and frightens the sky with his weapons, knowing he can save his own life by taking to his heels. There is still one thing you must add, O best of kings, to all those many proposals and gifts you tell us to send to the sons of Dardanus. One thing only, and no man's violence should be able to overrule your right as a father to give your own daughter to a noble husband in marriage that will be worthy of her, sealing this peace in a treaty for all time. But if our hearts and minds are so beset with fear of the man, let us beg and beseech him to give her up, and restore to his king and to his fatherland the rights which are their due. Why do you keep throwing your unfortunate fellow citizens into the jaws of danger, Turnus? You, who are the single source and cause of all these sufferings of Latium. War will never save us. We are all asking you for peace, and the one inviolable pledge of that peace. I am the first to come to you as a suppliant. You imagine I am your enemy, and that causes me no distress. Look at me. I beg you to pity your people and lay down your pride. You are defeated. You must leave the field. We have been routed often enough, and seen enough funerals. We have stripped our wide fields bare, but if fame drives you on, if you have the strength in your heart, if you have such a yearning to receive a palace as a dowry, then be bold, have the confidence to go and stand face to face with your enemy, so that Turnus can get himself a royal bride. Our lives are cheap. We, the rank and file, are to litter the fields unburied and unwept. But you too, if there is any strength in you, if you have any of the fighting spirit of your fathers, stand up to your challenger and look him in the face. At this Turnus groaned, and blazed up into a violent rage. The words burst from the depths of his heart. You have always a good supply of words, Drances, when war calls for action. When the Senate is summoned, you are the first to appear. But this is no time for filling the council chamber with talk, for pouring out high-flown speeches in comfort, while our walls and ramparts are all that keep the enemy from us, and we are waiting for the ditches to fill with blood. By all means, Drances, you can thunder out your eloquence in your usual style and accuse me of cowardice, when your right hand has heaped up as many Trojan corpses as mine has, and all the fields are studded with your trophies. But now is our chance to test our vigour and our valour. We do not have to look too far for enemies. They are standing all round the walls. Shall we advance to meet them? You hesitate. Where is your martial spirit? Will it always be in your long tongue and nimble feet? You say I have been defeated. You scum of the earth. Who can say I am defeated when he sees the Thybris rising? swollen with Trojan blood, the house of Evander destroyed root and branch, and the Arcadians stripped of their arms. This is not how great Pandarus and Bitias found me, nor the 1,000 men I sent down to Tartarus on my day of victory, when I was trapped inside the walls and rampart of the enemy. You say that war will never save us. That prophecy is for the Trojan and for yourself, you fool. But go on, stirring up panic everywhere, and praising to the skies the strength of a race of men who have been twice defeated. Go on insulting the armies of Latinus. Now, it seems, the leaders of the Myrmidons are afraid of Phrygian weapons. Now, it seems, that Diomede and Achilles of Larissa are taking fright. I think Achilles is dead, isn't he? And the river Aufidus is flowing backwards in full retreat from the waves of the Adriatic. Drances even pretends to be terrified when I speak. A rogue's trick. The fear is a pretense to add sting to his charges against me, but there is no need for you to be alarmed. My hand will never take the breath of life from a man like you. It is welcome to stay where it is in that breast of yours. But now, Father, I come to you and to your great plan. If you no longer hold out any hope for our arms, if we are left to fight on utterly alone, if after one setback we are completely destroyed and fortune has abandoned us never to return, let us stretch out our defenceless arms and sue for peace. But if only there were a spark of our old courage left in us, any man who has fallen and bitten the dust of death rather than live to see such a thing, I count him as fortunate in his life's labours, the noblest spirit amongst us. Surely we still have untapped resources and warriors who have not yet engaged, and there are still cities and peoples in Italy to help us? And surely the Trojans have paid a heavy price in blood for the glory they have won. They too have had funerals. The same storm has fallen on all of us. Why then do we disgrace ourselves by stumbling on the threshold? Why do our knees start shaking before we hear the trumpet? Many things change for the better with the passing of the days and the ever-varying workings of time. Fortune comes and goes. She has mocked many a man, and then set his feet back on solid ground. So the Aetolian Diomede and his city of Arpi will not help us, but Messapus will, and Tolumnius will, blessed by the gods, and all the leaders who have come to us from so many peoples, and great will be the glory for the chosen men of Latium and the Laurentine fields. We have Camilla, too, from the noble Volscian race, leading her mounted column and her squadrons flowering with bronze. But if I am the only one the Trojans want to meet in battle, if that is your will, and I am such a great obstacle to the good of all, then the goddess of victory has not entirely abandoned me, nor is she so ill-disposed to these hands of mine that I should refuse any undertaking for which I have such hopes. I shall go and face him with my spirits high, were he mightier than Achilles, and with armour the equal of his, made like his by the hands of Vulcan. To all of you, and to Latinus, father of my bride, I, Turnus, second in courage to none of those who have gone before me, have offered up my life. Is Aeneas challenging me, and me alone? Let him challenge. It is the answer to my prayer. If this is the anger of the gods, I would not have Drances appease it. If it is a moment for courage and glory, I would not give it to Drances." So they disputed among themselves in deep uncertainty. Aeneas meanwhile had struck camp and was moving his army. Suddenly there came a messenger, rushing wildly through the royal palace and causing panic all over the city. The Trojans drawn up in line of battle, the Etruscan squadron with them, were coming down the valley of the Tiber and filling the whole plain. There was instant confusion and dismay among the people, and hearts were roused by the sharp spur of anger. With wild gestures, the young men asked for arms. "Arms!" they shouted, while their fathers wept and murmured. On every side a great clamour of dissenting voices rose to the winds, like the sound of flocks of birds settling in groves of tall trees, or swans whose harsh calls ring across the chattering pools of the river Padusa, so rich in fish. "Do not disturb yourselves, citizens," shouted Turnus, seizing the moment. "Convene your council, and sit there praising peace, while your enemies invade your kingdom with their swords in their hands." These were his only words to them, as he leapt to his feet and rushed from the lofty palace, shouting, "You Volsussus! Volsussus! Volsussus? You Volsussus! Tell the Volscian contingents to arm, and take the Rutulians with you. Deploy the cavalry, Messapus, and you too, Chorus, with your brother, in battle array over the whole plain. Some of you reinforce the approaches to the city and man the towers. The rest of you come and advance with me where I order." In an instant they poured onto the walls from all over the city. Father Latinus himself left the council and abandoned his high designs till a later time, in deep distress at the troubles of the hour. Again and again he blamed himself for not eagerly welcoming Trojan Aeneas and taking him into the city as his son-in-law. Meanwhile men were digging pits in front of the gates and bringing up rocks and stakes. The shrill trumpet blew the signal for bloody battle, and mothers and sons went to make a motley ring round the walls of the city. Their last labour called them, and they came. The queen, too, with a great retinue of the mothers of the city, rode in her carriage to bring offerings to the temple of Pallas, on the heights of the citadel. With her went the maiden Lavinia, the cause of all this suffering. Her lovely eyes downcast. She's not the cause. That would be the men. She didn't ask them to do this. The mothers followed them, and filled the temple with the smoke of incense, pouring out their sad prayers from its high threshold. "Mighty in arms, ruler of the battle, Tritonian maiden, break with your hand the spear of the Phrygian pirate, and throw him to the ground. Spread out his body beneath your high gates." Turnus, in a fury, was eagerly arming himself for battle, and soon had on his breastplate glowing red with bristling scales of bronze, and his golden greaves. There are children outside playing. His head was still bare, but the sword was girt to his side as he ran down from the heights of the citadel in a blaze of gold, ardent and exulting, and already grappling with the enemy in hope and expectation. He was like a stallion that has broken its tether and burst from his stall. Free at last, he gains the open plain and runs to the fields, where the herds of mares are pastured, or gallops off to bathe in the river which he used to know so well, tossing his high head and whinnying with delight, while the mane streams over his neck and flanks. The Princess Camilla came to meet him with her Volscians in battle order. Under the very gates of the city she leapt down from her horse, and all her squadron followed her example, dismounting in one flowing movement. These were her words: "Turnus, if the brave are right to have faith in themselves, I dare to meet the Trojan cavalry. This is my undertaking, and go alone against the horsemen of Etruria. Give me leave to try the first hazard of war, while you stay on foot by the walls and guard the city." At these words, Turnus fixed his eyes on this formidable warrior maiden and replied, "Camilla, glory of Italy, I cannot hope to express my gratitude in words or deeds, but now, since that spirit of yours knows no limits, come share with me the heat of battle. According to a firm report my scouts have brought me, that scoundrel Aeneas has sent his light-armed cavalry ahead to scour the plains, while he himself is coming to the city along a ridge in deserted mountain country. I am planning an ambush where there is a sunken path through a wood, and shall post armed men there, where the road enters and where it leaves the gorge. You go meet the Etruscan cavalry and engage them. Bold Messapus will be with you, with the horsemen of Latinum and the squadron of Tibertus, and you will have the task of leading them." So he spoke, and with like words urged Messapus and the leaders of his allies into battle, while he went to meet his enemy. There is a winding valley well suited to stealth and stratagem in war. Hemmed in on both sides, it is darkened by the dense foliage of trees, and a narrow path leads into it, making a treacherous approach through a ravine. Above this valley, among the viewpoints on the hilltop, there lies a little-known plateau, which gives safe cover whether you wish to engage the enemy on your right flank or on your left, or stand on the ridges rolling down great boulders. Marching by paths he knew, Turnus took up position here and settled into ambush in this dangerous forest. Meanwhile, in the palace of the heavens, Diana, daughter of Latona, spoke to swift Opis, one of the sacred company of girls who were her companions. And these were her sad words: "Camilla is going to cruel war. Dear as she is to me above all others, she has put on our armour, and it will avail her nothing. This is no new love, believe me, that has come to move the heart of Diana with sudden sweetness. When Metabus, hated by his people for his arrogant use of power, was driven from his throne, he left the ancient city of Privernum and took his infant daughter with him through all his wars and battles, to be his companion in exile. He called her Camilla, changing part of her mother's name, Casmilla. Carrying her in his arms, he made for the long ridges and the lonely woods, cruel spears pressing him hard on every side, and the Volscian soldiers on the move all about him. Suddenly he found his way blocked by the river Amasenus, in full spate, foaming to the top of its banks. Such a deluge of rain had burst from the clouds. He was about to leap into the water to swim across, but checked himself out of love for his child and fear for the burden he so loved. As he pondered all the dangers, a painful resolve soon formed in his mind. He took the warrior's spear he chanced to have in his hand, a mighty weapon of solid, knotted, well-seasoned wood, and wrapped the baby in cork tree pith and bark. He lashed her tightly to the middle of the spear, then brandishing it in his mighty hand, he cried out to heaven, "To you, kindly maiden, lover of woods and daughter of Latona, I dedicate my daughter as your handmaiden. She is your suppliant, and as she flies through the air to escape her enemies, the first weapon she holds is yours. O goddess, I solemnly pray, receive her as your own, as I now commit her to the hazard of the winds." At these words he drew back his arm and sent the weapon spinning. The waters rang with the sound as helpless Camilla flew over the wild river on the whistling javelin. But by now a great throng of his enemies were pressing Metabus even closer, and he threw himself into the water. Then, in triumph on the other side, he wrenched from the turf, spear, and the maiden with it, his dedication to Diana. No cities took him under their roofs or within their walls. He himself was too savage to have submitted to them, but he spent his whole life on the lonely mountains, among the herdsmen. There in the scrub, among the rough dens of beasts, he fed his daughter with milk from the udders of wild brood mares, putting the teats to her soft lips. And as soon as she had taken the first steps on her infant feet, he put a keen-edged javelin in her hand and slung a bow and arrows from her little shoulder. Instead of gold in her hair and a long cloak to cover her, a tiger's skin hung from her head all down her back. While her hand was still soft, she was spinning her baby javelins and whirling the sling around her head on its tapering thong to shoot the white swan or crane from the river Strymon. Many a mother in the towns of Etruria longed in vain to see her married to her son, but all she cared for was Diana. Undefiled, she preserved a constant love for her weapons and her chastity. If only she had never been caught up in a war such as this, daring to challenge the Trojans, I would have loved her, and she would now have been one of my companions. But come now, since a bitter fate is closing in on her, glide down from the sky, Opis, my nymph, and visit the land of Latium, where a dreadful battle is being fought, and all the omens are adverse. Take these weapons, and draw an avenging arrow from my quiver. Then, with that same shaft, whoever violates that sacred body with a wound, be he Trojan or Italian, must pay to me an equal penalty in blood. Then I shall put a cloud round her poor body and her armour, and take them undespoiled to lie in a tomb in her own country. The goddess spoke, and Opis, veiled in a dark storm, glided lightly down through the breezes of the sky, whirring as she flew. But all this time, nearer and nearer to the walls, came the Trojan column, the Etruscan leaders, and the whole cavalry army drawn up in regular squadrons. Horses were prancing and snorting all over the plain, fretting at the reins that held them, and plunging to one side after another. Far and wide the field bristled with the steel of spears, and all the land was a blaze of light from uplifted weapons. There too, coming to oppose them, appeared Messapus and the swift Latins, Chorus with his brother, and the squadron of Camilla. Their right arms were drawn back, their lances thrust forward with tips quivering. Men were arriving, horses were neighing, the whole plain was ablaze. They had now come within a spear cast of each other and stopped. Then, with a sudden shout, they galloped forward, urging their horses to frenzy and showering weapons thick as snow till the sky was curtained with shadow. Turnus and bold Acontius were first to charge at each other, riding full force with levelled spears, and great was the din and fearful the fall as they crashed their war horses against each other, smashing breast on breast. Acontius was thrown forward a great distance and fell like a thunderbolt, or a rock hurled from a catapult, scattering his life's breath into the breezes. In that instant the battle lines were thrown into disorder. Putting their shields onto their backs, the Latins turned and rode back toward the city walls, driven by the Trojan squadrons under Acillus. But when they were almost at the gates, they raised another shout and pulled round the supple necks of their horses, while the Trojans fled in their turn, galloping with slack reins in a long retreat. As the sea advances wave by wave, now rushing to the land, throwing foam over the rocks and soaking the edge of the sand in the bay, now turning and hurrying back, sucking down the stones and rolling them along in its undertow, while the shallows retreat and the shore is left dry. Just so the Etruscans twice turned and drove the Rutulians to the city walls, and twice they were repulsed and had to cover their backs with their shields, and look over their shoulders at their enemies. But when they clashed in battle for the third time, and all the ranks were embroiled together, each man singled out his own enemy, and then the groans of the dying could be heard. Weapons and bodies lay deep in blood, half-dead horses rolled about, entangled with the corpses of men, and ever fiercer and fiercer grew the battle. Orsilochus did not dare to go near Remulus, but hurled his spear at his horse, and its steel point struck under its ear. Maddened by the blow, it reared, heaving its chest high and lashing its hooves. Unable to endure the pain of the wound, Remulus was thrown and sent rolling on the ground. Catillus felled Iollas, and then Herminius, great in stature, in spirit, and in arms. His head of golden hair was bare, his shoulder bare, and he had no fear of wounds, so vast he stood and open to the weapons of his enemies. Catillus' spear drove right through him and stood out between his broad shoulders quivering, and Herminius doubled up in agony. Black blood was flowing everywhere as they dealt out slaughter with the steel, searching for death and glory among the wounds. There in the middle of all this bloodshed, exulting in it, was the Amazon Camilla, with the quiver on her shoulder, and one side bared for battle. Sometimes the pliant spears came thick from her hand, sometimes, unwearied, she caught up her mighty double axe, and the golden bow and arrows of Diana rang on her shoulder. Whenever she was forced to retreat, she turned her bow and aimed her arrows while still in flight. The girls she had chosen as her companions were all about her, Larina, Tula, and Tarpeia, brandishing her bronze axe. All of them daughters of Italy, chosen by the servant of the gods Camilla to do her honour by their beauty and to be her own trusted attendants in peace and war. They were like the Amazons of Thrace, whose horses' hooves drum on the frozen waters of the river Thermodon when they fight round Hippolyte in their brightly coloured armour, or when Penthesilea, daughter of Mars, rides home in her chariot, and her army of women, with their crescent shields, exult in a great howling tumult. Whom first did your spear bring down from his horse? Whom last, fierce warrior maiden? How many bodies of dying men did you strew on the ground? Aeneas, son of Clytius, was the first, when he stood face to face with Camilla, and she drove the long pine shaft of her spear through his unprotected chest. He vomited rivers of blood and champed the gory earth with his teeth, twisting himself round his wound as he died. Then she brought down Lyrus and Pegasus on top of him. Lyrus, when he was trying to collect the reins after his wounded horse had reared and thrown him. Pegasus, when he came and stretched out an undefended right hand to support Lyrus as he fell, but they both went flying head over heels. Then she sent Amastris, the son of Hippotas, to join them, and raced after Tereus and Harpalycus, Demophoon and Chromis, pressing them hard even at long range with her spear, and for every dart that flew from her hand a Trojan hero fell. The huntsman Ornytus was rushing past in strange armour, mounted on his horse Iapix. This was a warrior who wore on his broad shoulder the hide of a bullock, while his head was encased in the huge gaping jaws of a wolf, complete with cheekbones and white teeth. A country spear shaped like a sickle, armed in his hand as he moved in the middle of the press, taller by a head than them all. She caught him. It was not difficult, for the whole column had turned and run, and when she had pierced him through, she spoke these bitter taunts over him. "So, you thought you were driving game in the woods, my Etruscan friend. The day has come when you have been proved wrong by a woman's weapons. But it is no mean name you will be taking to your fathers when you tell them you fell by the spear of Camilla." Instantly then she struck Orsilochus and Butes, the tallest of the Trojans. Butes was turned away from her, and the tip of her spear went in between helmet and breastplate, where his neck shone white as he sat in the saddle, with the shield hanging loose on his left arm. She fled from Orsilochus, but after he had driven her in a great circle, she cut inside the ark and began to pursue her pursuer. Then, rising above him, she struck again and again with her mighty axe, hacking through his armour and his bones as he begged and pleaded with her, and the axe blows split the hot brains down his face. Oh, God! The warrior son of Aeneas, of the Apennines, the warrior son of Aeneas of the Apennines, then came upon her and stood stock still in sudden terror at the sight. He was not the least of the Ligurians, while the fates gave him leave to tell his lies. So, when he saw that it was too late to save himself by running away, and that the princess was upon him and would not be deflected, he began to play his tricks, using all his cunning and calculation. "What is so wonderful," he said, "if a woman depends on the courage of a horse? Give up your chance of running away, and risk your life in close combat with me on level ground. Gird yourself to fight on foot, and you will soon discover that the winds are blowing you only the illusion of glory." These words stung Camilla to a burning fury of resentment. Handing her horse to a companion, she stood there to face him without a trace of fear, armed like her enemy with a naked sword and a plain light shield. The moment he thought his ruse had succeeded, the warrior took to his heels himself, jerking the reins around. He made off, driving his horse to the gallop with steel spurs. "You Ligurian fool," she cried. "You are the one who has been carried away by the empty winds of pride. You have taken to the slippery arts of your ancestors, but little good will they do you. Trickery will not bring you safe back home to your treacherous father, Aeneas." These were her words, and on nimble feet she ran as swift as fire in front of the horse and stood full in its path. Then, seizing the reins, she exacted punishment from her enemy in blood. As easily as the sacred falcon flies from its scrag to pursue a dove high in the clouds, catches it, holds it, and rips out its entrails with hooked claws, while blood and torn feathers float down from the sky. But the Father of gods and men was not blind to this as he sat high above, on the top of Olympus. And he roused Tarchon, the Etruscan, to bitter battle, laying on him the sharp goad of anger. So Tarchon rode among the slaughter in the ranks of his retreating squadrons, whipping them up with all manner of cries, calling on each man by name, and rallying the routed to do battle. "What are you afraid of, you Etruscans? Will you never know shame? Will you always be so spiritless? This is rank cowardice. One woman has turned this whole army and is scattering you to all points of the compass. What are weapons for? Why do we carry swords in our hands and not use them? You are not so sluggish when it comes to love-making and knight campaigns, or when the curved pipe calls you up to the dancing chorus of Bacchus. Wait then for feasts and goblets from groaning tables. That is what you love. That is what you care about. Do nothing till the soothsayer gives his blessing and announces the festival, and the fat victim calls you into the deep groves." When this harangue was over, he spurred his horse into the thick of the enemy. He too was willing to die, and made a wild charge at Venulus, tearing him off his horse and clasping him in his right arm. He rode off at full gallop, with his enemy held in front of him. A shout rose to the sky, and all the Latins turned to look as Tarchon flew like fire across the plain, carrying man and armour with him. Then he broke off the steel head of Venelus's spear, and with it probed for exposed flesh where he could give the fatal wound. Venelus fought back to keep Tarchon's hand from his throat, pitting strength against violence, just as when a tawny eagle has seized a snake and flown up into the sky, winding its talons round it and digging in its claws. Meanwhile, the wounded serpent writhes in sinuous coils, its scales stiff and rough, and hisses as it reaches up with its head. But for all its struggles, the eagle never stops tearing at it with its great hook of a beak, beating the air all the time with its wings. Just like such an eagle did the victorious Tarchon carry off his prey from the Tiburtine ranks. Following their leader's example, and seeking like success, the Etruscans, the men from Maeonia, rushed into battle. Then Aruns, whose life was owed to the fates, circled round Camilla to find where fortune would offer the easiest approach. She was swift of foot, but he was more than her equal with the javelin and far superior in cunning. Wherever she went on her wild forays through the thick of battle, Aruns was behind her, quietly following in her tracks. Wherever she went as she returned in triumph and withdrew from her enemies, Aruns pulled on his swift reins and kept out of sight. Round a whole circle he went, trying now one approach, now another, brandishing the fatal spear that never missed its mark. It then so chanced that Clorius appeared, a man who had been consecrated to Cybele on her mountain, and in days long past had been a priest. She saw him a long way off, resplendent in his Phrygian armour and spurring his foaming war-horse. The horsecloth was of hide, with gold stitching and overlapping brass scales in the shape of feathers. He himself shone with exotic indigo and purple. The arrows he shot from his Lycian bow were from Gortyn in Crete, and the bow hanging from his shoulder was of gold. Gold, too, was the helm on the head of the priest, and on that day he had gathered the rustling linen folds of his saffron-yellow cloak into a knot with a golden brooch. He wore an embroidered tunic, and barbaric embroidered trousers covered his legs. Whether her intention was to nail his Trojan armour to the temple doors, or to sport captive gold on her hunting expeditions, she picked him out in the press of battle, and blind to all else and unthinking, she tracked him through the whole army, burning with all a woman's passion for spoil and plunder. At last the lurking Aruns saw his moment and hurled his spear, offering up this prayer to heaven: "O highest of the gods, guardian of the holy mountain of Soracte, Apollo, we are the first to worship you. We heap up the wood of the pine to feed your flames, and in your holy rites, sure in our faith, we walk on fire, sinking our feet deep in the hot ash. Grant now, all-powerful Father, that our arms be wiped clean of this disgrace. My mind is not set on spoils won from a girl, or a trophy set up for routing her, or for any form of booty. My fame will come from my other feats of arms, but let this deadly scourge be defeated and fall to my spear, and I shall go back to the cities of my fathers and claim no credit." Phoebus Apollo heard, and part of his prayer he decided to answer. Part he scattered to the swift breezes of air. He granted his prayer to surprise Camilla and lay her low in death, but did not allow the mountains of his native land to see him ever again. A sudden squall took these words and blew them far away to the winds of the south. So when the spear that left his hand went whirring through the air, and the Volscians, all of them, turned their minds and eyes intently to their queen, she was not thinking of whirring or of air or weapons coming out of the sky. and the shaft struck home beneath her naked breast, and lodged there, drinking deep of her virgin blood. Her companions rushed in panic to support their falling queen, and Aruns fled, more terrified than anyone, joy mixed with his fear. He had lost his faith in his spear and was afraid to face the weapons of the warrior maiden, as when a wolf has killed a shepherd or a great ox, and goes at once to hide high in the trackless hills before avenging spears can come to look for him. He knows what he has done, and takes fright, comforting his quivering tail by tucking it under his belly as he makes for the woods. Just so did Aruns disappear from sight in wild confusion, happy to escape and mingle in the press of battle. Camilla was dying. She tried to pull out the spear, but its steel point stood deep in the wound between the bones of her ribs. She was swooning from loss of blood, her eyes dimming in the chill of death, and the flush had faded from her cheeks. With her dying breath, she spoke to Acca, alone of all her young friends. She was her most faithful companion, and to her alone she used to open her heart. I can do no more, Acca, my sister. This cruel wound is taking all my strength, and everything is going dark around me. Run from this place and take my last commands to Turnus. He must come into battle and keep the Trojans away from the city. And now, farewell. Even as she was speaking, she was losing her hold on her reins, and in spite of all her efforts, she slid to the ground. Then, growing cold, she little by little freed herself from her body. Her neck drooped, and she laid down her head, yielding to death and letting go her weapons, as her life left her with a groan and fled in anger down to the shades. At this a measureless clamour rose and struck the golden stars. Now that Camilla had fallen, the battle raged as never before. Charging in one solid mass came the whole army of the Trojans, the Etruscan nobles and the Arcadian squadrons of Evander. Opis, Diana's sentinel, had long been at her high post in the mountains, watching the fighting and knowing no fear. But when, far beneath her in the press of warriors shouting in the frenzy of battle, she saw Camilla receive the bitter stroke of death, she groaned and spoke these words from the depth of her heart. "Ah, alas, Camilla, you have paid too cruel a price for daring to challenge the Trojans in war. Nor has it profited you that alone in the wild woods you have worshipped Diana and worn our quiver on your shoulder. But your queen has not left you unhonoured now at your last hour. This death of yours will not be forgotten among the peoples of this earth, and no one shall say that you have died unavenged. Whoever has desecrated your body with a wound will pay just penalty with his life." At the foot of a high mountain there was a huge mound of earth shaded by dense ilex trees. It was the tomb of Drances, an ancient king of the Laurentines. Here the lovely goddess first alighted on her swift flight, keeping watch for Aruns from the high mound. When she saw him gleaming in his armour and swollen with empty pride, she called out, "Why are you leaving? Turn round and come in this direction. Come here and die. You must receive your reward for Camilla. Come, even a man can die by the weapons of Diana." When she had spoken, the Thracian nymph took a winged arrow from her gilded quiver and drew her deadly bow. Far back she stretched the string until the curved horns of the bow were close together, her hands level on the left of the steel point of the arrow, the right holding the string against her breast. Aruns heard the hiss of the arrow and the whir in the air, and in that same moment the steel was planted in his flesh. His comrades paid no heed. They left him breathing his last, and groaning in some place unknown in the dust of the plain, while Opis soared on her wings to heavenly Olympus. The light-armed squadron of Camilla were the first to flee when they lost their queen, then the Rutulians in a rout, then bold Aeschylus and all the scattered leaders and leaderless columns made for safety, wheeling their horses and galloping for the walls. No weapon could check the deadly onset of the Trojans, and no one could stand against them. Back rode the Latins, with slack bowstrings on slumped shoulders, and the four-hooved beat of their galloping horses drummed on the crumbling plain. As the black cloud of swirling dust rolled up to the walls, the mothers stood on the watchtowers, beating their breasts, and the wailing of women rose to the stars in the sky. The first Latins to burst into the open gates were pressed hard by a pursuing column of enemies mingled with friends, and did not escape a pitiable death. That would be a doorbell, that's not mine, sorry. There, on the very threshold, within the walls of their native city, and in the safe refuge of their own homes, their bodies were pierced, and they breathed out their life's breath. Some shut the gates, and dared not open them, to take their own people within the walls, for all their pleading, and there was piteous slaughter of the armed men guarding the approaches, and of the men rushing to death on their weapons. Of those who were shut out before the weeping eyes of their own parents, some rolled headlong down into the ditches with the weight of the rout behind them, while others came on blindly at full gallop and crashed into the massive gates with their firm-set posts. Even the mothers strove their utmost. The true love of their native land showed them the way, and Camilla was their example. Wildly they hurled missiles from the walls and rushed to do the work of steel with stumps and stakes of oak hardened in the fire, longing to be the first to die in defence of the walls of their city. Meanwhile the warrior Turnus was still in the wood when the bitter news came and filled his heart to overflowing. The words of Acca brought him great turmoil of spirit. The battle forces of the Volscians were destroyed. Camilla had fallen. The enemy were attacking fiercely and had carried everything irresistibly before them. Panic was already reaching the city. In a frenzy, and this is what the implacable will of Jupiter decreed, he came down from the hills where he had kept his ambush and left the wild woods behind him. Scarcely was he out of sight and moving onto the plains when Father Aeneas entered the open pass, came over the ridge, and then emerged from the woods. So then they were both making for the walls at speed, with their whole armies marching not many paces from each other. Aeneas saw the Laurentine columns and the long line of dust smoking on the plains at one and the same moment as Turnus recognized Aeneas advancing relentlessly under arms, and heard the drumming of approaching hooves and the breathing of horses. They would have joined battle instantly and tried the fortunes of war if the rose-red sun had not been dipping its weary horses in the Iberian Sea, drawing down the light of day and bringing on the night. They both encamped before the city and built stockades on their ramparts.